Hi, welcome to Math for All, where we try to make math creative, curious, and inclusive for everyone. I'm Molly Volke.
And I'm Heidi Sipnani. We are so excited that you are joining us here this evening. We're really happy to be talking with our friend Sue O'Connell and all of the great work that she is doing. And we would love for you to follow along. You can follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. And in any of those places, you will always know when there is a show coming, or you can go back and watch previous shows if you missed something with our other amazing educators that we have the privilege of speaking with. You can also find us on our website, mathforall.us, where
It's
we
new,
have.
and we're very excited about it.
So we have, again, links to the show, links to our book where you can learn more about that, and resources that we have used in classrooms when we're working with teachers. So there's lots of fun things that you can find in that space. So please follow along.
Yes. And to get to our show tonight, we are going to be talking to Sue O'Connell, and her big question this week is how can we bring more joy to the teaching of mathematics, which is kind of a theme for all of our shows. Even if it's not the main topic of our show, it seems to revolve around that. So it's really exciting to talk about this, especially at the end of the year when everybody's feeling like, testing, blah, blah, blah. Let's talk about joy. All right, so I'm going to introduce Sue. Sue O'Connell has years of experience as a classroom teacher, math coach, school improvement specialist, author, and professional learning specialist. She is known for developing engaging and meaningful math tasks that focus on conceptual understanding, procedural fluency, and mathematical reasoning. Sue is the lead author of Heinemann's Math in Practice and Math by the Book series, grade by grade professional learning resources. Heidi always has a copy of everything to show because she is a book hoard. She has authored or co-authored many of the other teaching resource books, including Putting the Practices into Action and Mastering the Basic Math Facts, and is the developer of Hand2Mind's newly released, everybody,
Amazing.
Navigating Numeracy Learning Progression Centers that are designed to provide meaningful and engaging practice tasks to enhance student number skills and build their number sense. That is literally what everyone is looking for. Okay, side commentary. She is a frequent speaker at local, state, and national conferences and is the director of quality teacher development, which provides professional learning experiences for teachers across the country. So as always, we are super thrilled to have Sue with us. And welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yes, we are so excited to be able to speak with you again. It's always just such a pleasure.
Yes.
It's always fun to talk math with you.
Yeah. I know. We love it. We love it when we get to see you in person, but this is the next best thing. So we always start with, what is your math story? So our listeners can get more depth of your knowledge and where it came from.
Well, to go all the way back to when I was a student, I've always been a good math student. You know, I always got A's in mathematics, but I can't say that it was my favorite class to be in. It wasn't difficult for me to do. At that time, it was basically memorization, memorizing algorithms, facts, formulas. I guess I have a good rote memory, but it wasn't fun or engaging to be in that class. I wouldn't have said, oh, I can't wait to get to math class, but I always was a good math student. It kind of changed for me after a few experiences. One that I recall is in college taking the mathematics for elementary teachers course. And that was the first time that I really saw math broken apart with this was taught by a teaching assistant who was wonderful, who brought in mathematics manipulatives and talked about why the properties were what they are. And we experimented with things. And that was really my first experience with that. And when I went into the classroom as a teacher, like most other people going in, I was an elementary teacher. I taught it all. You teach science and social studies and health and math and reading and writing. And I actually was a reading specialist. But after a few years of teaching, there was an opportunity in my district to take this teacher leader program in elementary mathematics. And so it was like a graduate level series of courses. This was before we ever talked about being a math coach or an elementary math specialist. It was kind of like a precursor to that. And so I went into that and just kind of discovered a new passion or a new joy for teaching mathematics. About the same time, the other influence, I'd say, was Marilyn Burns, because she was starting to publish things. And I got a copy of About Teaching Mathematics, the first one way back. This was in the 80s.
I'm looking for mine right now as you say that.
It blew my mind because I thought there isn't anything in here the way I learned mathematics. It was all, it would prompt your curiosity. You were investigating things. You were getting insights. It was just a whole new experience. Right about that same time, the National Council of Teachers of Math put out that curriculum and evaluation book, which was, again, them kind of saying, we need to be directing ourselves a little differently in mathematics, kind of moving us away from facts, formulas, algorithms, and into problem solving and talk about math. And so all of that kind of happened at about the same time and really changed my thinking about mathematics and what should go on in the math classroom. And just to kind of link to what our topic is this evening, when I started teaching, I taught the way my teachers taught. I did workbooks and worksheets, and we went through the textbook because that was all I'd really known about teaching mathematics. But with those different experiences together, the NCTM, the Marilyn Burns, that kind of stuff kind of all, coming together for me at the same time, it really changed my ideas about what to do in math class. And teaching math started being fun because I could tell the kids were having fun learning mathematics. So that's where kind of, I think my career took a different path where, I moved from being in the classroom to being a math coach, being a district school improvement specialist, but focusing a lot on the mathematics teaching. I was at the University of Maryland for a while, working with their seniors in elementary education. And then moving into the writing, the speaking, the coaching, teachers and coaches. It's all been, I moved from that reading language arts area over to mathematics. And it was just that group of things that happened at the same time that just kind of changed my ideas about mathematics and made it joyful instead of what I would say kind of monotonous prior to that.
It's kind of amazing I kind of relate this to my own life too. I was a math major in college, and I, like you, I was a decent math student. I wouldn't say always things came easily to me, but I always got good grades and whatever. But when your eyes are actually opened up to actually learning the math versus learning the procedures, it's life changing. And I don't even know. I wouldn't be doing this job. I wouldn't be doing the show. I wouldn't be talking to Heidi. I wouldn't know you if that, whatever it was for you, all those things coming together didn't happen. And for so many teachers, that doesn't happen. It's like,
Yes.
gosh, it's so mean. I don't know what the words are, but like,
And
this is
how can you
deprivation for teachers if they don't get to go through that.
Yeah, and how can you be an enthusiastic teacher if you don't really love or have joy in what you're teaching? You know, I feel badly for teachers who don't feel that math joy
Right.
Yeah.
in their classrooms.
Yeah, it's the worst part of their day.
Students. So that's what kind of brought me to this question, was just the idea that, you know, in some ways when we say things like, you know, the focus will be on more joy in teaching math, it sounds like fluff, you know, like that's not important as teaching fractions or understanding place value, or, you know, but really I think it is a very foundational piece of teaching. To be a teacher, I think you have to love what you're doing to do it effectively. And we need to find a way to support K-5 teachers to feel that.
And also, the effects of that are, I mean, we can talk about teachers and their feelings and all of that stuff, but like the effects of all of that translate to kids having those same feelings. And when they have those same feelings, then they learn.
And that's what we're focused on today. You see so much about kids experiencing math joy. And that's what also kind of led me around to this. How are kids going to experience math joy? And we're saying that's important. We want them to have a positive identity about mathematics. But how will they have a positive identity about mathematics if the teacher doesn't have a positive identity and doesn't feel that math joy? So maybe we're starting in the wrong place to be focusing on math joy for students. Maybe we should be focusing on that, you know, for teachers, because they're the ones that instill that in their students.
I 100% agree. It is, you know, there are multiple research studies out there that talk about the number of elementary school math teachers who have math anxiety. And when I was working with teachers like some who like said, yes, I have math anxiety, but I fake.
Wait, but Heidi, can we preface this by saying that Heidi did her doctorate and her thesis, which we have not discussed on a show, and this is our bad. We definitely should be discussing that, but she brings to the table for this conversation an entire doctorate of research on math anxiety. And it's
real.
It's
a real thing.
It's a real thing. And for teachers, like, so when we think about this, and particularly K-5 teachers, so when we think about like this joy to teaching mathematics, you know, I had some teachers who I was working with who told me straight out, I completely fake that I like this because I know how important it is for my students to have a positive experience. But inside, I'm so anxious and so nervous. And so like every time I go to teach it. And so, that's what we worked on, you know, and others who would come and say like, oh, I didn't teach math as a student teacher because my supervising teacher didn't like teaching math. And so they mostly didn't. And so coming in their first year of teaching, never having taught math, never having experienced. And like,
wait, can I dissect that for 1 second? Because now I'm like, wow, this is a new thing, right? So that was not my experience when I was teaching or doing my student teaching. But do you think that if you're a teacher who is uncomfortable teaching math, that you would rather just teach yourself, even though you're uncomfortable, than having to guide someone to teach it? Is that the premise?
You have more control if you're teaching it yourself, and you can control what I find
Okay.
often with teachers who
Okay.
have anxiety
Mhm.
about math, what comes along with that is a lack of confidence in their
Yes.
abilities to teach math, because that's why they're anxious,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
they don't feel as capable and as competent. They feel
Mhm.
like they're lacking something, whether it's
Yeah.
content understanding or pedagogy, or it could be a lot of,
Mhm.
one of multiple things. So they're a little anxious about it. So if I can teach the way I feel more comfortable, and
Mhm.
this is where often that's direct
Yep.
instruction,
Yeah. Yeah.
teacher telling, do
Mhm.
this worksheet
Mhm.
afterwards kind of thing, because there's control to that. But if
Yes.
somebody opens it up, let's say the student teacher comes in and opens it up to, we're going to start with the problem of the day, and
Yeah.
I'm going to start asking open-ended questions, and that
Mhm.
is
I mean,
terrifying to
fingers crossed that
someone
they're coming in thinking
who,
that.
yeah, but it's a terrifying thing if you
Yep.
don't feel comfortable with math. You don't want to
Okay.
ask those open-ended
Yeah.
questions, because you question how you can handle that. And you're
Mhm.
always
Right.
nervous that a child is going to ask a question that you can't answer, or so
Yeah.
yeah, I see a lot of that, and that connection between the anxiety and the feelings of incompetence,
Mhm.
and that's, I think, really what we need to get to, is
Yeah.
how do we
Yep.
support
Yes.
teachers with
Mhm.
that? Because we're saying with students, we give students the grace to be okay if they don't feel confident
Mm.
with
Yep.
something, to
Mhm.
be okay to make
Mhm.
mistakes with it.
Mhm.
So we have to, in the same way, give teachers grace to
Yes.
say, you didn't learn mathematics this way.
Mhm.
You didn't learn math for understanding. Take those
Mhm.
fourth and fifth grade teachers who are doing
Mhm.
all those fraction
Yep.
computations. They learned them solely by memorizing those
Mhm.
algorithms. They
Mhm.
can tell you when
Mm. Keep
have
All
to
the
change.
little
add,
songs.
Is keep
subtract
change
the
flip? Is that
numerators and
one of
keep the
them?
denominators the
Yeah.
same, but multiply the numerators and the
Mhm.
denominators. But if you start talking about why, they panic.
Yeah.
That anxiety boils up because they don't know why. That's not their fault. No one
Right.
ever told them why.
Yep.
How would we expect you to know? I don't ever remember my teachers caring if I knew why, or even getting onto the topic of why. It was just,
Yeah.
here's how you do it this way to get the right answer. So now those students who
Mhm.
learned in that situation
Mhm.
are now the teachers of mathematics,
Mhm.
and
Mm.
not because they wanted to teach mathematics,
Right. They wanted
because
to
they wanted to teach
reading.
elementary
Yeah.
school. And often when you talk to elementary teachers, like, math came along with it. I
Yeah.
couldn't get away from it.
Mhm.
I have to do it because it's part of the job, but their love and their passion is often in
Mhm.
literacy. So,
Well,
now
actually, I'm going to say this right now. Of the three people on this show, the only person who went to school, I'm just assuming, Sue, because you said already that your passion first was literacy.
Mhm.
Heidi was an English teacher, and I'm the only person who's never done that.
Mhm. But it's rare in
It
elementary
is
to find
rare.
an 8 to 5
Mhm.
teacher. I think usually the
Mhm.
people that loved math were really good at math. They choose to teach middle school and
Yeah.
high school math.
Yeah.
I
K to
had to
5.
choose that. I had to choose middle school so I could get a job
Mhm. Mhm.
because I was math certified.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's all just goes with everything that you're saying.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. But
Everything
then
you're
it becomes
saying.
a complex
Yeah.
issue.
It's
How do you support teachers? Because
Yeah.
there's not one thing that
Mhm.
everyone needs. There are
Mhm.
teachers that need more content
Mhm.
understanding. That would be enough to
mm,
lower their anxiety and
Yeah.
make them joyful if we could just give them opportunities to learn how those fractions work.
Mhm.
But look at how little time we have for
Yeah.
professional learning in an elementary building. And
Mhm.
look at how much math there is on the course of the year. You don't have time to do all of that,
Yeah.
and especially depending on, like you were talking about, the fourth and fifth grade teachers, where the bulk is the most stressful stuff of elementary learning, which is fractions and decimals, division, in my opinion. Whatever else you want to add to that list, for sure. But those things, if we could even get teachers to feel comfortable enough to say, I don't understand this.
Right. Again, it's that grace to know that it's okay if you don't get this. We understand if you don't get. That's been a big part of my work. Like, you held up that math in practice book, Heidi, but so you know from being in that, in every module, in every content module, it starts with a section called About the Math that says, here's what your students at this grade level for this math need to know and be able to do. Here's like a little quick primer on here's how you do it, because we knew that a lot of teachers needed that to feel more comfortable. I mean, I hope they're not skipping those pages and going to the activities, because that's what makes you feel more comfortable, more confident, and that's what lowers your anxiety and then allows you to get in there and do tasks that are more open-ended without fear that someone's going to ask you a question that you don't understand.
It's so easy for teachers to just stay in that uncomfortable zone because of the way our classrooms are set up, right? Like, if you don't have the opportunities that you're presenting to teachers in a district, or, you know, anyone who does professional development, and there aren't necessarily opportunities for you to feel vulnerable and be able to dive into the math, experience some manipulatives, talk about why does this work when it's so confusing to you, even though it's only fourth grade, or like whatever the grade is. But I mean, you could talk about that with even younger grades. You could, I mean, I was a math major, and when I came out of the class of college, I thought, I'm good. And then I started teaching math, and I was like,
and you thought, maybe
am I even qualified for this?
But some of that gets into
a degree to do this.
Some of that gets into a different area where it's not that you didn't have the content understanding. Some of that is the instructional strategies to make it work for kids. And we didn't learn those because it was mostly direct teaching kind of things.
And I also didn't understand the math.
They want to do it differently. They don't know how to do it differently. And again, it's that grace to say, just try something. And if it doesn't work, but some people are afraid to jump in and try it. That's where math coaches are wonderful. Go in and co-teach a lesson, help kind of hand in hand. Can you try a few strategies and see how they work? What if we do some of this open-ended stuff and you see me or hear me do it? Because there are times when kids give me their, say, approach to solving a problem, and I have to think about it, and I am not sure it will always work, but I'm very comfortable saying, I'm not sure about that one. Let me think more about that. It's working here. I'm not sure if it's always going to work. Let me think about it and come back to you. A lot of teachers don't feel comfortable saying that.
No, but that's where we need to be, right? And for some teachers, that's a longer road than other teachers, and they should know that that's okay, because I didn't feel that way in the beginning either. And I don't know, should is not the right word, but like, graduating with a math degree, you should feel like you know what you're talking about, but I didn't.
But the biggest block there sometimes is in teachers' own voice to themselves, saying, you don't know enough about this. You're not, you're not good enough in mathematics to do that. It's like that negative voice.
It's the messages
in your head speaking to you. And how are you going to feel joy in teaching if you're nervous about those kind of questions, if you don't think you can handle certain situations? So, I mean, I do think teachers need opportunities to see the content and explore the content, whether it's professional learning pieces or things like in Math in Practice, where I can look it up and see how to do it and kind of get a quick little primer from that. But also things like coaching, people who support them, administrators and coaches who are supporting them to dive in there,
I think
get a little more joy.
Yeah. I think
That's
for me,
really why we did Math by the Book too, quite honestly, because we saw how excited kids get and teachers get with children's literature. And so having conversations at Heinemann, we were saying, we want that excitement at the beginning of a math class. Why can't we start that with a story? And then the key there is not just the engagement, but it's a context for the math, which is a very critical math piece. We're not just teaching with numbers and abstractions. We're teaching with a story situation, events, things that happen, and linking the math to it. So it's boosting their problem solving and all, but it's just a natural way of bringing that joy in because the kids love the stories. I have been so amazed by how much I knew the kids would love it. But by how many teachers come back and say, this changed the way I teach math. I'm loving these lessons because they're starting at in a way that's comfortable for them with the literacy piece of it. They're seeing that math can be something to talk about and to explore, and it doesn't have to be a teacher telling kind of situation. And I think that's changing some people's minds about how to make joyful math experiences.
Well,
sorry, go. No, you go.
But I love the idea, and I love that whole series as well, and like the books for it that go along with it. But I think, sometimes we have this real world math. I'm just going to idea, right? And that can be very challenging at different grade levels for a variety of reasons. But sometimes we try and force a context onto the math that isn't really there. Whereas if you start with a book or and a story, even if it's not something they've experienced themselves, we're providing a greater context for the math that is then coming. And you haven't experienced it, but now you've read or experienced a book. I'm still an insane reader. And it's that idea of looking into yes, I haven't been to this place or I haven't been to this time period, but you enter into the story in that same way, which allows you to have access and experience with the story and then the mathematics in a way
I
that
think that's what leads to equitable practice, because even if you've never, we use a story in third grade called The Raft by Jim LaMarche. And it's about a little boy who finds a raft and he's staying with his grandmother for the summer. She has no electronics at all. He doesn't know what to do with himself. He finds a raft in the backyard. He has all these adventures and all that. And we jump off of that to do area investigations to, well, how big is his raft? They'll say how long or how wide, but is that really telling me how big? And move into that. But the key there is two things. First, the book wasn't written to teach math. It's just showing a situation where there is some math involved and we can connect to that math. And it gives those opportunities for kids to really talk and think and explore and make their own rafts. And again, some very joyful experiences that kind of are around that story. But back to what I was saying about equitable practice, if I just did that in a quick lesson in class without the story, half the kids wouldn't even know what a raft was.
Right.
But the idea that we read that book together, by the time we finish that story, they all have that understanding of what a raft is and that visual of what a raft is. And so, like you were saying, they're all hearing it through that story. And now I can jump into the math. And now it's making sense because we all have that background knowledge. So, that's another piece that I think, supports that kind of practice.
Mhm.
So it's interesting that you're talking about kids' experience with math, and I'm just going to bring it back to your original question about teachers, and I'm feeling like it's making me think about different modes of teachers being able to re-experience math, which we were talking about earlier. And
Mhm.
I feel like and you've named most of them, right? Like there's professional development, there's coaching, there's one thing that we haven't talked about, and I think is super impactful that really was helpful for me was I had a mentor when I first started teaching, and I was teaching middle school math, and I thought I knew everything. And then it turned out I didn't really know everything. I knew how to do it, but I didn't know how it worked or why it worked. And me being able to work with her was so impactful for me. And I feel like that could translate in lots of situations for
Mhm.
teachers to just be able to do math together. Let's say that they don't have to do, or they don't have the Heidi or whatever, but if they are just allowed to do math together,
Mhm.
that in and of itself can be transformative for teachers
Absolutely.
if they're willing to read your story and be like, oh, what the heck does this even have to
Mhm.
do with why are we talking? You know what I mean?
The
Like just even
collegiality,
having the
you
question to
just
talk
have a
about it.
team of people that you can
Yes.
explore with and feel
Yes.
comfortable with and kind of
Yes.
explore it before you go take it into the classroom with your
Mhm.
students. That's huge.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's another big one, the coaching, but also the mentoring and just the collegiality, the idea that you
Yeah.
can have a team of people to kind
Mhm.
of work with.
Yeah. And
And I
sometimes,
think too, we've got a lot of things lately that we've talked about that helps bring joy to students, but also then to teachers. Like
Mhm.
we focused a lot on the play aspects of math.
Yeah.
And that
mm,
idea of kids exploring and playing, and we know they have more fun doing it. Well, which classroom would you rather be in? Would you
Right.
rather be teaching? The
Mhm.
one where students are doing like worksheets and
Right.
textbook pages? Because I'll tell you, there's nothing that sucks the energy out
No.
of a math classroom more than, a
Mhm.
textbook page or a worksheet. And some of the more hands-on, the more interactive
Mhm.
tasks, that those are the ones that get that energy up. And that's when, as a
mm,
teacher, my energy goes up.
Mhm.
We feed
mhm,
off. Remember COVID,
Yeah.
it was horrible trying to get your kids energized when you
Mhm.
were looking at a screen.
Mhm.
But when you're
mhm,
in that classroom with them and they have hands-on things that they're working on, and they're doing
mhm,
games and play and exploration, and that's what that latest project I'm doing
Mhm.
is all
Yeah.
about, that navigating numeracy with hand to mind. It's
Mhm.
let's get those hands-on materials, and
Mhm.
let's minimize those worksheets that
Yeah.
nobody wants to see or do.
No.
And that wouldn't bring joy to me as a teacher when someone hands me
Mhm.
something I have to fill out. But just that idea of practice
mm.
can be engaging,
Mhm.
practice can be interactive, and practice can be joyful.
Right.
And that makes the whole class feel that way, including the teacher.
Mhm.
So would you say for that, what would be like a top tips that you would give teachers to create a classroom that was less worksheet and more joy?
Um, Well, I've spent my career trying to provide some resources for
Mhm.
them to know how to do that. I think that's very difficult for
Mhm.
a lot of teachers to do.
Mhm.
You can
Mhm,
say, do less telling, do more explorations. But the
Mhm.
bottom line is when a child says, but I don't understand that place value, your first
Mhm.
inclination is, well, let me tell you about place
Mhm.
value.
Mhm.
So that's what I do a lot in my resources and workshops and things
Mhm.
like that, is try and help them see you don't have to tell them. If you
Mhm.
set up the right investigation, if you get them doing something hands-on and talking to partners, they're going to figure it out. You're going to be happier. They're going to be happier.
Mhm.
Um, but that's a difficult thing for teachers to do who are not sure where to go with that. But I would say that's one thing, is you will be more joyful if you talk less and get your kids doing more. You will be more joyful if you can find a group of colleagues that you can talk with and experiment with and plan with. And, I'm so tired of being in places where they divvy up the planning and one person on the team plans math for the whole team and nobody knows what they're doing. They just take their plans and do it. We need to talk about the math and talk about those plans together. Find a mentor. Stop looking at things as the do all end all, like the test score, and think about progress. That makes me a more joyful teacher. If I can do things like have a math journal where I can look back at what they did in September, how great do I feel about what they've learned? Or portfolios or something where every quarter they put a few pages in that they've done or tasks in, and I can look back. That idea of seeing their progress makes me happy.
Right.
Whereas that one score on a test, not so much. So focusing on progress versus focusing on a score for something, that's going to create more anxiety in my mind. Whereas looking at progress creates more, more joy at what I've been able to do with those students.
That for me, it just speaks to my life right now. I feel like I'm like gearing away from perfection and trying to see the actual, instead of going towards the goal, trying to
are we going in the right direction?
Yeah. And like what have I already accomplished that's leading me to whatever the goal is? But I love that so much for teachers, especially young teachers, to hear that message, because I don't feel like I ever really felt that message. I always have felt like I was supposed to be perfect all the time when I was teaching. And I don't think that's really how it should be when you're learning to teach. I mean, I think everyone told me that I had grace, but I didn't feel it. And that I was supposed to always just be doing the right thing all the time when I really didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
But I love you just named so many avenues for that.
Yeah. And people, they lack joy for different reasons. So like you said, it might be anxiety that's come from when they were a child. It might be lack of content knowledge or feeling uncomfortable about it. It might be just not knowing what to do differently. And each of those kind of has a different way of dealing with it. But I think we owe it to teachers to help them find that joy, to K-5 teachers, that joy in teaching mathematics, because it's out there. Embrace those play aspects of learning mathematics. Do things like number routines. Look at the way they pull kids. It's hard not to be joyful when you put up an agree or disagree, or an alike or different, or a would you rather, because you hear those fun, insightful things that kids say, and it's hard not to feel the joy. So we need to get more of that into the classrooms, more of the tasks that make that joy really evident.
But unfortunately, like you have said, those are the very things that make teachers nervous if they're not confident themselves. So the start has to be with the confidence, right? Because otherwise you're not going to embrace the idea of companionable debate, or somewhere where anybody might disagree.
Yeah, it might be one of those like chicken and egg things, like the more you do it, the more confident you feel, the more confident you feel, the more you do it. I guess just jump in there with one of them. The number routines are a great way to jump in, because they're pretty simple and short. And, once you're getting comfortable with that, maybe, move out into, making your lesson more investigative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can
You know,
you
but we
talk?
need to think about it, and
Yeah.
not just Math Joy for students. We
Right.
really need to think about it. It needs to come from teachers, and it's up to us to try and help teachers find Math Joy. Each of us can help a colleague do it, or can mentor someone, or can provide resources that help them. You know, what is it that is pulling them down in terms of being a teacher of mathematics, and what can we do to, you know, try and eliminate those negatives and give them that, you know, give them that positive math identity that they are striving to give their students without faking it, right,
Yeah.
Heidi? Without
Yeah.
like, you know, I'm still the same, you know, uncomfortable, anxious person inside, but I'll just pretend like I like this. I guess that's better than not pretending.
Yeah.
Being
Well, and it was like
math class, but
yeah, you know, and I'm like, okay, well, let's work to getting you so that we're not pretending.
right.
You know, like, and I appreciate the awareness of like, you
and
know,
the
it's really important. But like, let's make you not feel so nervous, like a good portion of your day.
Right. And acknowledging it's okay to feel that way. We get it. Most adults feel that way about mathematics. Let's face it. You know, most adults don't have a deep understanding and don't feel as confident and joyful about mathematics.
Absolutely.
But I think there's a giant message out there telling everyone that they are not supposed to feel good about math. That's part of it, right? There's lots of messages out there.
Every comic strip, every, you know, sitcom, someone always is talking about how they hate mathematics, and people we meet.
So you should. So you should hate math. So what's awesome for us is that we can just keep working to undo that.
Yeah. Absolutely. So as we're letting people know a little bit more about where they can find out more about your work, can you talk for just a little bit about your new Hand to Mind product? And the thing that was really one of the things I really like about it is the idea that it's based on the progressions versus like this is this grade level. So can you talk about why that is? And
it's called Navigating Numeracy Learning Progression Centers. So they are centers to use in classrooms, and there is a kit for each grade level, K to 5. And they focus on the priority standards, number standards. So what I did at each grade level is looked at the big math topics of that level and chose 15 number concepts, from fact fluency, place value, decomposition, decimals, fractions, whatever it was at the different grade levels. And those 15 math topics each have centers, but not one center. They each have 3 centers. So what I did was look at where would this look when a student is just beginning their work with this? Where might it look as they're progressing along? Where might it look as they're moving towards mastery? So there are 3 options to put kids. So the first one might be, if you're talking about comparing 3-digit numbers, the first center might really focus a lot on comparing 2-digit numbers, having the kids model and talk about it, because we know if they don't have that foundational piece, it's going to be hard to move to the next. Then maybe they go to the comparing 3-digit in the next center, but they're doing it with materials and place value mats and base 10 blocks and building numbers and talking about it with partners. And then they go to the last center, and then they're doing it more with the abstract numbers, where maybe they are either using number discs or doing the numbers in expanded form, so they could look at comparing that way. So it's kind of moving them along, as I hope is aligned to the way they're being taught in the classroom. Because we don't want kids at a center that is only an end level of that skill. They
Right.
need to practice along the way of learning that skill. So this gives them 3 different centers for each of those skills to kind of move through, and really just allows for natural differentiation. There are some kids that might need to stay at the first center longer, some that can move more quickly through the centers. They're all kind of randomized with spinning and rolling, so they could play that same game or do that activity multiple times, and it wouldn't turn out the same every time if a child needs to experience it more. And they're all built on materials, math talk, and those progressions, and really mimic the way we teach kids through progressions. So it's just a different way to think about practice rather than worksheets or kind of the end skill on a worksheet. Some practice is just doing what you were doing in class and modeling things and talking about it with a partner. There are a lot of games, but they're not all games. Some of them are just explorations, just building things. Each partner builds them. They compare and see if their models are the same. They talk about, what they did. It's just really solid, productive practice that is aligned to standards. So I've been really excited about that. And what's so nice, Hand to Mind does the whole kit with everything they need. And it's so easy for teachers because they just grab a center. And this time of year, I've had so much feedback from people who have it saying they're using it to revisit skills for the whole year. Maybe after testing, it would be a great way to zero in on some of those important number concepts that you want your second graders to really be strong in for going to third grade. You could go back and play those centers. So it's just all about sort of the priority number pieces in K-5 math.
But it sounds to me, the way you're describing it, that it's not a single grade necessarily. Like some of it bridges over grades so that teachers could be sharing centers or a second grade teacher who has a student who really could move on, but they don't have it. Some teachers have trouble when they have kids who are being able to move on and they don't know what to do with a kid. But in a center mode, that's a really great place to be able to put something that gears into the next grade, but isn't the next grade.
Absolutely. I always have to put that professional learning piece in there. So, for each topic, here's what your kids need to know and do. Here's the way we set up the progressions, hoping that it also supports teachers who, like we talked about, those teachers who are anxious or not sure how to do something. When you look at these centers, I think it should in your mind say, ooh, that's what I could be doing during my teaching in the classroom. That's how I could move them through this. And Molly, related to what you said, we made sure the only thing in each grade level that has the grade level printed on it is the teacher's guide. The actual game boards and task cards are color coded, but they don't say the grade. So if you were an interventionist or a special educator or a teacher that, like you said, you have some kids that need to work on foundational skills more from a prior grade, you could grab those and they wouldn't know the difference. They don't blatantly say on them a grade level.
I love that. I love that, because progressions for me in my own learning were pivotal, I think, because most teachers only learn math at the elementary level, only really learn math at their own grade level. And like what comes before and what comes after is mysterious in a way, even if they know what the general teachings are there. But
in order to support all students, you have to know what comes before and what comes after. That's what helps you figure out. I mean, the what comes before, that should be how we start every lesson. Because in most cases, those kids haven't seen that for 6 months or 9 months or something since they did it last year. Even if they knew it last year, they're going to probably be a little rusty on it now. So, Yeah, you've got to start with that. Remember what we did and what were the big ideas and why did we do that? And now let's move into, let's add another layer to that.
Well, and I think sometimes, we tell teachers, oh, like, what are you doing for differentiation? And it's like, and this is one of those ways that really lays it out along the progressions so that students have multiple entry points. And I think that's what I've just really appreciated about the setup of this. And
then they can feel confident because and feel like they succeeded at something because we gave it to them at the level they're learning it, not all the way at mastery level in the beginning. They're kind of moving through the practice in that way. So that should lead to, more feelings of that they're capable, that they're confident, that it's been really a fun task to work on. I'm very excited about it. And it's just getting out there for people to see.
Yeah, no, we saw some of the early preview materials at a conference. And so I was like, it's coming. So we know you have a Facebook group as well. So
which I already put up there, even though
we do a lot of math talk on that Facebook group. People will be sharing things that they used from, say, Navigating Numeracy or Math in Practice or Math by the Book. But a lot of times it's just, I'll post an idea or I'll post an article or a teacher will post something or ask a question. It's just about talking about the teaching of mathematics. So I would encourage anyone that wants to just search for Math in Practice Facebook group, and you'll see it there. It'll have my name right next to Math in Practice.
I love that. It's just, if you don't have a community in your school, and I know that we've heard teachers say, they're in a silo, and I mean, they don't say this exactly, I don't talk about silos, but they're in a silo and they don't have anybody that they can talk to about this stuff because it's just too foreign to some districts. That what a wonderful opportunity to be able to just chat with other teachers about
this is a nice little math community.
And what are some other places where people can get in touch with you?
What are some other sorry?
So I think people can get you here, right?
Yes, that's Twitter. If you're on, or X, I still haven't gotten that quite down. That's how you will reach me there. I think you have my website, which is Quality Teacher Development, and you can see more about some of the things I've done, or if you want to take a look at any of the things I've written. But I also, post things there, talk about where I'll be going. I have an exciting project coming up with Heinemann in the fall. Next year, I'm going to do a little coaching course using Math in Practice to support teachers to, it's for either team leaders or grade level leaders or math coaches or district administrators. And it'll be once a month virtual. And people can join and we'll talk about different coaching strategies and how to support the teachers within your building. It starts in October through March, and that'll be coming out soon. So kind of just keep an eye out probably on Twitter or go to the Math in Practice Facebook group. And when the information comes out, I'll post it. But I'm hoping that will be a way to, again, talk about how to bring joy to teachers, because these are the groups that are working with teachers.
Excellent. Love that.
Oh my gosh. We love talking to you, and we love the work that you do, and that you continue to dig deeper. Does that sound like the right thing? I feel like you continue to dig deeper to find okay, math anxiety, how do we tackle that? And you're doing it. You're providing resources.
Certainly don't have all the answers, but
you don't. But nobody does.
Do whatever. It's like we say with teachers, you just have to get in there and try something and see and be willing to take that risk and see if this helps to, reduce that anxiety for some teachers and bring that math joy into those classrooms.
That's right.
Sure.
But you're doing it in a lot of different ways, and we appreciate that, and we love talking to you, and we are just excited to see your next venture. That sounds amazing.
Well, thanks. It's always fun to talk with you.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much for coming, and we
Yeah.
will see you later.
My pleasure.
Oh,
So excited.
all night. As
Yep.
usual, we are so lucky to be able to talk to the coolest people doing the coolest things in math. So, so our show is brought to you by our book, Math Activators, which you can find at Didex. And our next show.
Yes, our last show for the season.
I know our last show for the season is May 22nd. Oh, that was a misspelling.
It's
He does
Peter.
not go by Pete. He goes by Peter. Everyone knows that. Peter Liljedahl will be with us on May 22nd.
And that's
which
a
is
Wednesday,
not,
so
I was going to say it's
not our
not
normal
a
night.
Thursday,
but
not our normal night. But we hope you will all join us for that. And until then, we hope you keep math creative, curious, and inclusive for everyone.
Good night, all.
Bye.